300 men marched toward a battle they already knew they couldn't win, not out of despair, but because someone had to buy their homeland 3 desperate days. It's 480 BC, and the largest invasion force the ancient world has ever assembled is crawling south through Greece, burning villages and swallowing entire kingdoms whole as it advances. Ancient writers claim the Persian army topped 1,000,000 soldiers. Modern historians say closer to 200,000. Either number is a nightmare no Greek city has ever faced. The man commanding that army is Xerxes, king of Persia, a god-king chasing revenge for his father Darius's humiliating defeat at Marathon exactly 10 years before. Standing directly between Xerxes and the heart of Greece is a narrow strip of coastal rock the locals call Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. At its tightest point, the pass is barely wide enough for a single loaded wagon to squeeze through between mountain and sea. That was exactly the point. Leading the tiny Greek defense is Leonidas, king of Sparta, 60 years old, a man trained for nothing but war since the age of 7. The oracle at Delphi had already warned Sparta of 2 possible fates: watch the entire city burn to ash, or lose one of its 2 kings. Leonidas took only 300 Spartans north with him, deliberately choosing fathers with living sons, men who'd already left an heir behind, so no bloodline would end here. Along the march, thousands more soldiers joined the column: Thespians, Thebans, and allies from smaller cities, swelling the defenders to nearly 7,000 men. When Persian scouts rode ahead to spy on the Spartan camp, they found soldiers calmly combing their long hair and stretching before the coming fight. Told this was simply a Spartan ritual before battle, Xerxes was baffled. These were men grooming themselves like they intended to die looking beautiful. For 4 entire days, Xerxes simply waited on the plain outside the pass, certain that once the Greeks understood the true size of his army, they would slip away. Instead, he sent a single blunt demand through a messenger: lay down your weapons, and you will be spared. Leonidas answered with 2 words that would outlive empires. Molenlave, he reportedly said, come and take them. It wasn't a boast for effect. It was a promise he fully intended to keep. On the 5th day, Xerxes finally struck, hurling wave after wave of Median and Persian infantry straight into that impossibly narrow gap of stone. The pass swallowed his numbers whole. Only a handful of Persians could ever reach the Greek line at once, no matter how many thousands stood waiting behind them. The Spartans fought locked together in a phalanx, shields overlapping, spear tips bristling forward in an unbroken wall of bronze the Persians simply could not crack. When Spartan spears finally shattered against Persian shields and armor, the men calmly drew their short swords and kept killing without ever breaking formation. Furious at the delay, Xerxes unleashed his most feared soldiers, the Immortals, 10,000 strong, an elite guard rumored to never lose a single man in battle. The Immortals died in that pass exactly like everyone who came before them. Their legendary name meant nothing against a corridor built entirely from stone, spear points, and discipline. 2 full days of relentless, exhausting fighting passed, and the mightiest army on earth still hadn't advanced a single step beyond the Hot Gates. Then a local shepherd named Ephialtes, hungry for silver, walked into the Persian camp offering something far more valuable than any weapon: a hidden mountain path. A narrow goat trail wound through the hills for miles, circling completely behind the Greek position undefended and unguarded. Ephialtes wanted only a reward for the secret. Xerxes sent his immortals marching along that trail through the cold night, and by morning they were descending quietly and unseen behind the Greek lines. Scouts raced back to warn Leonidas that Persians were closing in from behind. The pass they'd held for 2 straight days was no longer safe ground. Leonidas then made the decision that would define this entire battle and his legacy forever. He ordered most of the Greek army to retreat south and survive. He kept only his 300 Spartans, roughly 700 Thespians who flatly refused to leave, and a group of Thebans held there against their will. There was no version of this fight where the remaining men walked away alive, and Leonidas understood that completely before he chose to stay anyway. One Spartan, warned that Persian arrows would blot out the sun itself, is said to have smiled and simply answered, "Then we'll fight in the shade." As dawn broke over the mountains, the remaining Greeks marched out beyond their defensive wall, meeting the Persians in open ground instead of hiding behind stone. They fought until every spear had snapped clean in half, then kept fighting with swords, then daggers, then finally with nothing but bare hands and teeth. Leonidas fell somewhere in the chaos of that final bloody morning, and around his body a brutal, desperate fight immediately broke out for hours. For separate times, the Spartans drove the Persians back just to recover their fallen king, refusing to let his body fall into enemy hands. Eventually, the immortals arrived down from the mountain path behind them, sealing the trap shut, and the last Greeks found themselves completely surrounded on every side. The final survivors retreated to a small rise of ground, fighting on with whatever remained to them: broken spear shafts, swords, even bare fists. Persian arrows finally finished what spears and swords could not, raining down relentlessly until the hilltop fell silent and no defender remained standing. When Xerxes walked the battlefield afterward, he ordered Leonidas's body beheaded and displayed publicly, a fury that betrayed exactly how much this delay had cost him. 300 Spartans, alongside their loyal Thespian allies, were gone. But Xerxes had lost thousands of his own men, and worse, he had lost precious time. Every single day spent fighting at Thermopylae was a day the rest of Greece spent building warships, training soldiers, and preparing for whatever came next. Weeks later, the outnumbered Greek navy met the enormous Persian fleet at Salamis and shattered it completely in those narrow straits, echoing that exact same deadly trap. A year after that, combined Greek armies crushed the remaining Persian forces at the Battle of Plataea, permanently ending Xerxes' dream of ever conquering Greece. None of it happens without those 3 brutal, bloody days at the Hot Gates, where a handful of men turn a mountain highway into a graveyard. The Spartans didn't stop that invasion by winning the battle. They stopped it by refusing to lose in the only way that ever truly mattered: time. Centuries later, travelers placed a simple stone marker near Thermopylae, inscribed with words meant to honor every man who died defending that pass. It reads, "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws we lie. Not glory, not victory, just plain duty, spoken as simply and plainly as men who already understood the full cost of it long before they marched in." Thermopylae was never really about Sparta winning a single battle. It was about proving that a small enough sacrifice could buy an entire civilization time. Maybe that's the real lesson still hiding inside those 3 days at the Hot Gates. Some stands were never meant to be won, only meant to matter. If stories about soldiers who chose impossible odds over easy surrender pull you in like this one did, stay close. This channel lived for exactly those moments.